Hi, this is welcome to Case Study 3.11. This is Craigslist Connections. My name is Daniel Myers, and I will be presenting this for you today. So, let's start with a brief synopsis of the case. So, Case Study 3.11 is Craigslist Connections. It focuses on the string of murders with Craigslist postings involved. In short, individuals around the country were utilizing Craigslist as a medium to find new victims for their murders. They would tailor postings to fit their desired target demographic and connect with the victim when they responded to their posting. These murders initially went unnoticed until 24-year-old medical student Philip Markoff. His case caught national attention after he was dubbed Craigslist Killer. Craigslist was slow to respond to the situation and took the position that they were not responsible in the situation. So, the facts. Craigslist, it was known as the world's largest classified advertising app, came into the public spotlight after medical student Philip H. Markoff was charged with the murder of a young woman he contacted and met on Craigslist in 2009. So Markoff robbed three women over the course of 3 weeks. He also shot and killed his second victim. Authorities linked the emails between Markoff and the victims to his apartment. They followed the IP address, and they were able to find him there. And it's funny because they actually, fun fact, they pulled him over. It says they ended up arresting him days later. So they pulled him over right after they'd been following him for a couple of days, and he was actually with his fiance at the time. She'll come up a little later, but he was with his fiance, and they pulled him over. They accused him of murder and a string of other things, robberies, right? And he denied it. She didn't believe it. She was so, and then we go down here. It says his fiance was initially on his side during the trial. Then she kind of found out over time that the things that happened were in fact true. This brought attention to many Craigslist-related deaths. Over 101 murders were found in connection to the website. Markoff's story was only the first to go public. There have been multiple Craigslist killers, including Michael John Anderson and Richard Beasley. Those are two famous ones that we're going to talk about. So, despite many users being honest, Craigslist does allow users to pose as anyone they please on their listings. Listings don't require a name or a phone number. In the case of Michael John Anderson, Anderson poses a woman named Amy looking for someone to babysit their 5-year-old child. He used this ad to lure a 24-year-old girl named Catherine Ann Oslin to his home, where he shot her with a .357 Magnum Blackhawk revolver. In the case with Richard Beasley, Beasley posed as a farmer looking for a farmhand to help him out. In the ad, he actually said, "We need someone to watch our farm down in southern Ohio. Live for free in a double-wide trailer, nothing in the way of duties except to take in the peacefulness of the countryside and make sure no one steals any farm equipment or perpetuates any mischief." He also offered to pay $300 a week to whoever was interested in taking that role. So to somebody just looking, they might think this is the offer of a lifetime. They just have to watch over this farm, and they have to make sure nothing happens, and they'll end up getting paid, right? So Beasley used this ad to kill 3 middle-aged men and was stopped when his fourth victim, Scott Davis, escaped with a flesh wound and alerted the authorities of what was going on. Let's talk about the company a little bit. So the company has not commented publicly on the issue since 2010. Craigslist's position is that billions of transactions occur safely, and it does not have the ability to screen every ad posted or know the background of the posting ads. This has led to many people criticizing the company because they failed to respond with new safety measures for customers. Police departments were so concerned about the customer safety during Craigslist transactions that they started creating safe havens for users to make their transactions. Many of the police departments have also released tips and tricks for the citizens to use when they are handling Craigslist business. So actually, you want to take a step back talking about the safe havens. So in Philadelphia, actually, 4 police stations, this is back in 2016, but 4 police stations had opened up safe havens because of the rise of issues with Craigslist transactions, just people meeting people that they didn't know, meeting up with strangers. And also, there's actually been a study where it's talking about how since the internet came into play, there's been a rise in homicides, so stranger-related homicides. So homicides where neither individual knew one another, right? But they met on an online medium, and that is what led to the murder or homicide of one of the individuals, right? So on top of that, some police departments haven't been able. So we talked about Philadelphia. Some police departments don't have the manpower to have someone at the front desk 24/7 and always have somebody able to deal with Craigslist transactions, right, and be that safe haven. So what they have done is release videos with tips and tricks for citizens to use when they are dealing with these situations. So the stakeholders in this situation would be, one, the American people, right? If you hear about this on national news, you're going to be a bit intrigued about the story, and you're going to want to make sure that this isn't something that's affecting you as well, right? And then the second one would be the victims of the families, right? Because in this situation, yes, what's going on with Craigslist is terrible, but then also they're having to deal with the loss of a loved one, and now they're trying to figure out what Craigslist is doing to help make the situation better so someone else doesn't have to experience what they're going through. And then you have members of local communities. So if I'm in my community and I hear about this happening, it's one thing to be an American and hear about this going on in my country, but if this is taking place in my backyard, I'm really scared for my life, and I'm trying to make sure whatever is going on, something is being done about it. But then last but not least, you got the users of Craigslist. So if I know that I use Craigslist on a regular basis, I'm not gonna wanna be next. I'm hearing about this is happening on Craigslist, and this is happening on a website that I use regularly. I don't want to be the next victim, right? So you want to be assured that something is going on, something is happening to take care of this. So some theories we want to talk about is, first, enlightened egoism. An enlightened egoist looks out for the well-being of others, but always has their own self-interest in mind. Adam Smith believed that humans are rational, and there is some force of long-term self-interest that keeps businesses running ethically. In the case of Craigslist, you can see the self-interest at play. It is clear that Craigslist isn't worried about the impact their business has on the community or the victims of the murders. They failed to improve safety and help with the investigations. They needed to do more on their end other than only think of themselves. Next, we have categorical imperative. Categorical imperatives are commands or moral laws all persons must follow. Regardless of their desires or extenuating circumstances, the question is, are you comfortable living with the standards you established? In this situation, Craigslist chose to neglect the issues their business was causing. In the same way Craigslist did this, would it be right if another company chose to ignore the problems they caused in society, whether they were direct or indirect? So a direct example, would be a company maybe dumping stuff into a local pond, right? How is that affecting the community around them? Cool, the company gets the convenience of being able to dump in the pond, but it's bigger than that. It affects people outside of just them and their immediate families and community. So also an indirect example would be maybe a brand like Jordan. So Jordan released shoes, right, in the early 90s, 80s, late 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and during the initial release of their shoes, people were getting killed over them, right? Because people wanted the shoes and they weren't able to afford them, so people were getting killed, people were getting jumped after they bought the shoes, this and that. But at the same time, all Jordan did was make a product, right? So is it on Jordan to take care of that? It definitely is. They should address that, and because it is something kind of a byproduct of the business that they have. In the same sense, that applies to Craigslist. Next, we look at the front of the newspaper test. This is a simple ethical test that requires an individual to consider how a news reporter would describe a decision on the front page of the newspaper. If the individual is okay with what the media would say, then they are likely to be okay with the decision. But if they are not okay with it, it would probably be better for them not to make that particular decision. Considering the ethical issues of Craigslist failing to address the issue and choosing to remain silent, I believe they would have failed the test altogether. All their actions did was bring on negative PR, despite them being uninvolved with the crime itself. They may not have shot the bullet or drew the blade, but at the same time, this is negative PR that reflects on them. The decision not to say anything and not to pick a side and not to stand against what is happening with their business has affected them, and they didn't pass it from the newspaper test. So the first resolution I would suggest is to make more of an emphasis on safety. It isn't right for Craigslist to acknowledge the issue but neglect to do anything about it. Craigslist has taken their position that they are not responsible legally, but there is still an ethical responsibility to the people to at least try to make an improvement around the safety of their users. My second resolution is to pick up the pace of response to investigations. In the past, Craigslist has been slow to respond to the issues taking place that are related to them. One example is their failure to respond to any requests for comments from the media since 2010. More than that is their failure to make safety improvements amidst the issues related to their business. The final resolution I would suggest is to be more considerate of those involved in the issues. Despite them not being directly involved with the crimes, it is extremely bad PR for their name to be attached in a negative way. They may indeed win the legal battle, but their lack of response can cost them customers. The recommendation that I would like to settle on, though, is to make more of an emphasis on safety. There's a clear need for it. You can't be aware of what's going on and choose to not do anything about it. That's just ethically wrong, because really considering the well-being of others, and if you see that this is a problem, this is something, it's one thing if you don't know that it's going on, right? But once you're aware of it, you need to do something to tighten up those safety measures, because the people need to know that you do care about them. You do care about their well-being. You're interested in seeing them be an active member, an active part of your business. But in order to show them that, you have to show them that you are worried about their well-being. So my discussion questions were, first, what are some ways that Craigslist can improve their customer safety despite not being able to directly be a part of each transaction? My second question is, Craigslist took the position that there are simply too many transactions that happen under their watch for them to be expected to be responsible for what happens during them. With this in mind, do you believe that Craigslist is responsible or unresponsible for their customer safety? And then here are my sources that I use for this presentation. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.